Hello, and welcome to Husky Talk. I am your host, the best podcast host in the universe, Steve Cully. And tonight we will be discussing some sensitive issues regarding mental health, predominantly suicide. It's advised that if this topic is disturbing to you as a listener, that you listen with caution and self care. And with that, we are talking about one of our former teammates, Adam Coles, who we lost and we miss very much. And I am going to introduce our group. And to start, Mr. Jeffrey Larson, coming to us live from Florida. Jeffrey, hello.
Good evening, Steve.
To his right, the man himself, Matt Nuzie. Matthew, hello.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for doing this.
My bottom right, his own podcast, All Black Men Need Therapy. Chris Bellamy. Chris, hello.
What's up, Cully?
And Jeffrey Heyl. Jeffrey Heyl, another former teammate. Jeffrey, hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah. So this was brought to my attention by Geoff Larson, and I thought it was a great idea and something to really pay tribute to Adam and the kind of person that he was. And we all miss him terribly. And, you know, Chris, I kind of wanted to start with you because you have focused on, especially with your podcast, with, you know, All Black Men Need Therapy and mental health and the stigma behind mental health. Talk a little bit about that and, you know, why men and, you know, like you said, especially Black men are unwilling sometimes or hesitant to ask for help.
Well, first of all, man, I want to thank you again, Cully, publicly. I know we joked around prior to this going live, but thanking you. And I know that it is a sensitive topic. And to your question, one that's not talked about often enough. And why we don't talk about it, it's for every reason that you think, right? It's the machismo, it's the men's job, right? And I'm putting that in air quotes, is to protect and provide, right? So it's like, where's the time for you to process? And
Right.
And I bet we can all remember where we were at when we found out about Adam. And I'll never forget when I found out, the first call I made was to Al Fincher. And the reason why I made that call is because I knew I struggled a little bit with identity for a little while when I graduated. And, you know, going from playing ball, having an opportunity to play at the next level, that not working out, and then having to become a civilian. And I know he had just finished playing. So I was worried about where he was mentally, you know, on the heels of the unfortunate news we got about Adam. Because I just checked, and I remember that checked on everybody. I know Nuzie and I were texting, you know, I was just checking on people because you really just never know. And part of the reason you never know is because we don't talk about it enough, you know, and for a lack of vulnerability, a lack of, potential ridicule. Doesn't matter the reason, it just doesn't happen enough, and it's different for everybody, but a lot of it has to do with stigma, for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It does have to do with stigma, and it does have to do with machismo. And guys, you know, we're hunters and gatherers, and we're not afraid. We're afraid to have those difficult conversations sometimes. But Jeffrey, you know, this was something that you brought up, and I thought it was a great idea, you know, to really pay tribute to him. What was your thought process behind it, and you know, asking me to do it and realizing that it would be, you know, such a good topic and such a good segment and such a good idea for a show to help raise awareness?
Yeah, Steve, you know, I think it probably sparked. I think I might have seen like Matt, like Nuzie's, like a Facebook post, or and it had Adam in it, and I was like, I was like, wow, we should, like, Steve, you should really do that. And it's on the cusp of a lot of things. And, you know, having had an opportunity to get on and be on Husky Talk with you, Steve, and the things and the memories and the great times that it brought back. But, and let me just full disclaimer, like, I really don't belong on this call with the people we got on here. Like, you got Nuzie and Boot and Bell, like these, and obviously Cull, like careers on the football field that were just, you know, fantastic, like making big kicks and big runs and big plays and blocks. And like, I got to observe it, you know, I got to watch it from the sidelines. Right. And, but like the effect, and then, you know, it's ironic because like today I got a text from one of my Army buddies that I hadn't talked to in like 20 years. He's like, it's been too long. We got to get together. And like, he had been down this whole path of, you know, substance abuse and all those things that lead down that. And like what Bell was saying about like the just the buddy check of like who, you know, who's there. And like, since that first Husky talk that we did, Steve, like I must have had 10 to 15 teammates just reach out to me and be like, hey, Lars, man, that was awesome. Good to check in. Right. And like people I hadn't talked to in years. And, you know, I know, Steve, you and I talked about like some of our teammates that like had like hard times after like what Bell was talking about. Right. Like, and like, I was like, this platform, you may think it's small, but the opportunity for people to come and reach out and be able to tap into those memories of great times. Some of those memories sucked and they were hard, but like they were great. And it brings a smile to my face. And Steve, to your point, man, like what you're doing, like I told you this before we came on, like I don't even think you realize the power that you have with this podcast of bringing people together, because it's just not just our teammates, like my family, my kids, like my high school kids as a principal in school, they've heard about it, they've tapped in and said, and it's like, oh, that's so cool, Mr. Larson, like that's really awesome, like you have so much power, you don't even know it. And I'm just blessed to be a part of the great individuals that are on this show right now. So hey, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, Geoff, and I appreciate everything you said. And it really, you know, it doesn't matter how much you played or what you did on the field. It just matters the kind of teammate and the kind of person that you are. And you're incredible at both. You know, you were incredible as a teammate. You're an incredible person. You care. And I think that's really what makes the difference. And I wanted to talk to Geoff Heyl, because I think probably you were there as a kicker, football player, first when
Athlete,
yes. When he came in. So, you know, what were your first impressions? What was, because he was a lot older, and you know, you were younger, and he had come in, and he was just, I just remember that smile. He always had a smile on his face. You know, what was your first experience like meeting him?
Yeah, typical, kicker. There's a punter. There's the build, right? We kind of look like a soccer player. You know, you can kind of pick us out on a team pretty quickly. You know who the kicker is, punter is. Not Adam. I mean, here comes this guy. I think he was like 6'3", maybe 215, 220 built. He did not look like a kicker or a punter. He looked like more of like a tight end or wide receiver. So just that in itself was kind of shocking to see a guy that size. But then just meeting him for the first time, just a larger life personality, great person. I had the fortune to be a roommate with him, not only on the road when we traveled to away games, but also in the dorm. So I got to spend a lot of time with him, and just a great human being. And you look back and just getting prepared for this podcast, just so many great memories just come flooding back to you with Adam. And I think a lot of the teammates could echo that he was just, like I said, larger than life personality, great teammate, great person, and blessed to know him.
Right. No, absolutely. Matt, I think you were with him for a couple of years as well. What were your first impressions upon meeting him, especially, he being a veteran and you kind of being the new guy coming in. What was
So
that like?
I think he was 28, and I was a 17-year-old freshman. So when I turned 28, I looked back and I remember calling him and I said, I can't believe this is the age you were when you left UConn. I'm almost married. You know, it was crazy, but he was like a big brother, almost like a father figure to me, because I was a true freshman. He had been there for a few years, and he was much older, and he always looked out for me. I'll never forget. I'm sure some others on this call might remember this game too, but when we played Virginia Tech, it was probably one of the worst games I had early in my career. And we get back, we're going out to a party. For some reason, we found ourselves on this bus to a party, and on the way home, there was an unkind chant with my name in it, starting on the bus. Then we get off the bus, Adam's there. He rips a stop sign out of the street and starts chasing the kids who were not being kind. So there were so many stories where he just looked out for me. I mean, he was there, and through the good times, through the really bad times, and I just saw him as a larger than life person. And when Mark Hickok called me with just this horrific news, I didn't believe it. I called, I had his brother's contact. I had one of our friends was studying abroad out. I reached out to everybody. And obviously it turned out to be true. But kind of what Bellamy said at the start. What do you do after you're the focus of attention for 4 years, and everybody cares about what you're doing, and you've got a season and you've got an off season, and your schedule's so strict, and then hey, it's over. Where do you go from there? And I actually remember seeing Bellamy. I don't know if he remembers this, but was it Primerica? Was it?
Yep.
It was some sales conference thing, and you and I were trying to figure out what the heck we want to do. And it's from that point forward where you figure out if you could, what your path is in life, and it's tough after college. It's definitely tough, coming from a place where you're so well taken care of and respected, and you got to figure it all out again. So but to your point, Steve, the memories are awesome. You won't meet a person that knew him that doesn't have a good story or a funny story about him.
No, for sure. And Chris, I wanted to ask you, all of us struggle, I would say, with our identities, because throughout life, they're consistently changing,
100%.
from high school to college, to being an adult, to having a job, to having a career, to switching careers, to getting married, to having families. How do you, it's got to be difficult to manage those transitions. And those are the times that are most important and critical. What would you say about, what's helpful in helping you get through that time when you're changing your identity, when you're not that football player anymore, when you're not working at this job anymore, when you are getting married, when you are a father?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel like all I can do is speak for myself, right? For me, it's just being self-aware. One of the most liberating moments I've ever had in my life. And I'm sure at some degree we've all experienced being on the top at some point at something, right? And then you having to explain why you're not. And I remember this like yesterday. I remember being an NFL prospect and then coming home and everybody expecting me to be in the league. Like it's so easy, right? Like, and then you have to keep explaining yourself to people. And then it becomes, for me, again, I'm speaking for myself, then it became like, all right, I'm going to see this person. I got to make sure I tell them, whatever. And I'll never forget this. One day I woke up and I just had a conversation with myself and I said, hey, man, you just weren't good enough. And that's okay, right? You just weren't good enough. Yeah. And that conversation changed my whole outlook on everything, because then so that was my moment of clarity and self-awareness. So first, to answer your question, is self-awareness, right? Understanding, if we're going to use football terms, understanding you're down in distance, right? so having a deep understanding of self, and hey, that may not come easy to everybody, right? But there's a ton of books you can read. There's a ton of stuff you can do to work on that. And the second thing is purpose, right? Find something greater than you. Find something greater than yourself. So once I became very self-aware and I identified what my purpose was, it didn't matter what entity helped me get there. It didn't matter if it was football, if it was education, if it was finance. I knew who I was and I knew where I wanted to go. It was just about me finding the best vehicle to fit for me to get those things accomplished. And it didn't have to be monetarily. It could have been, it can be whatever your purpose leads you to, or the path it leads you to. So that's what I would say. For me, it was self-awareness and purpose, because identity is tricky, man. Identity is tricky. And and as you said, it constantly evolves, or it could constantly evolve if you allow it to.
Yeah. And Geoff Larson, especially for you, I mean, you've been in the educational system for years. Talk about, changing careers. You've been a principal, moving to Florida, taking that risk going down there, starting a family. I mean, and definitely being in the Army, having those different identities and how those have affected you.
Yeah, well, what Bell just said, that self-realization of who you are and what your purpose is. And Bell, for the record, my football career and my length was pretty much over after my first snap at UConn. I was like, all right, this is pretty much the ceiling for me. But
hey, you still had to deal with your identity during that moment, though, right?
That's right. But when I moved from Connecticut down to Florida, I was a principal up in Connecticut, and we made a decision as a family to move down to Florida, be closer to my wife's parents. And I took a job here as an assistant principal, right? And so I had to go from being a principal back to an assistant principal, and it was hard. It was,
and you were in a tough district in Connecticut. I mean, you were in the worst. I mean, you were in Hartford. I mean,
you did a great job here. I followed your career. You did an incredible job here.
It's not like you were at Greenwich Academy.
It wasn't New Britain. I mean, it wasn't one of those palaces in New Britain. I'm just saying. And so, but it was great. And I mean, but like going down, like to what Bell was saying, like, just being true to what you believe in and who you are. Like, as hard as times were here, like just persevering and say, hey, you know what? Those work ethic and the things that I taught and learned in the Army from Coach Etzel at UConn, like if I just stay true to that of working hard, keeping my, nose to the grindstone and being a good person, it's going to work out. So very true what Bell said, but these are the things that keep you going. I just had my first graduation at my high school down here, and I put a thing in my speech called Silent Angels. Like along the way, like people that you didn't know and didn't expect to help you, and somehow they were there in your life, and they showed up, and they had nothing but your best interest in mind, and they just helped you along that path. And like I would argue, like our teammates are the same way. Is like when you get a phone call from Steve Cully and you're on a podcast, or a teammate reaches out, hey man, buddy check, hey Lars, good to see you, bud. That stuff goes a mile, goes forever, and it just brings back all those memories. And to me, that's a thing that keeps you going. But just being true to yourself, and even in the darkest time, because it doesn't matter who you are, and that's one of the reasons, right? Is like everybody has those dark moments, and having that buddy, the teammate, the whoever to be able to rely on to help pull you through. To me, I think is worth everything.
No, absolutely. And Jeffrey Heyl, for you especially, I mean, you were in Connecticut, you are now in Maryland. You have experienced a lot of growth and a lot of success after football. You tried the Arena Football League just for a minute, and then you moved on and really reinvented yourself and have done fantastic ever since. And that identity completely changed the perception of who you are. but not really who you are, but your identity changed, focusing from one thing to another. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's, what we learned in college, and we talked about this on our podcast. But some of the things we all experience with time management and getting up early, and facing consequences if you're not on time, all that stuff. Going through it was not fun experience. But fast forward 10, 15 years, you really appreciate what we went through. And I talked about this, when Coach Edsel got on me pretty good after our practice. He said, I'm doing this because I care about you. I believe in you. And the minute that I stop is when you should be concerned, because that's when I've given up. So I've taken that into my career and some challenging times. That's really helped me through it, because when you understand, what someone is trying to get out of you and what their intentions are, it makes it a much more palatable situation than just feel like getting yelled at. So I feel like we've learned so much at Connecticut and in the practices in the off season and winter workouts. All of that has, I think, really prepared us for life more than we thought.
No, I agree. Coach Edsel, as hard as he was on us, definitely did his best, and I would say prepared us for life and prepared us for the adversities and obstacles that come with it. And Matt, to your credit as well, #1 RE/MAX agent in Connecticut, 8 years running. I mean, your identity.
Well, it's a small state. A small state.
Don't minimize it. Don't minimize it. No, man, that's a big deal. I mean, the hard work and determination that goes into that. But again, your identity, you're a football player, you're a kicker, you're doing certain things, and now you're married, you have kids, you have a business that you're doing phenomenal with. Your identity's kind of shifted. Like, talk a little bit about that.
So after college, I graduated in December in the winter session. So I went down to Florida and I lived with in a house full of kickers. Imagine that. We would train, and training we didn't know if we had any workouts. We were all kind of a little bit above average. And a couple months went by. I went to a few workouts, a couple of Arena League, one with Buffalo, and a couple combines out in Las Vegas and Reno. And I did that for 6 months, and I didn't know at the time, but looking back on it, in light of this conversation, I kind of felt some depression setting in. And, hey, everybody back home they're starting their internship and they're starting their jobs and their career. And I'm out here, I have no money. I just graduated college. I don't really have a team to play for. I'm just training. I'm not sure what I'm training for. And I did it for 6 months, but some of those guys did it for 3 years. And they were, bussing tables at Outback, I remember. And they'd come home with, there were 5 of us. One slept on the floor. We had no cable. We'd watch Entourage reruns, ad nauseum. And after 6 months, I said, this isn't really what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do. And it was tough, because getting into real estate, I went through all the interviews through UConn. I know Coach Edsel had set me up with somebody at Merrill Lynch and someone at a couple of their companies, and nothing really resonated. And so I got into real estate. And
it's cyclical too, right? Real estate really cyclical.
For what most people don't realize is that you actually don't really make money in the beginning. You make no money. So I'm living at home, kind of giving up on my dream and my passion, and I'm making no money. So it was, there were some tougher times, but you focus on what's important. And, if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to work for yourself and build a business, it's a good way to do it. And that's kind of what I focused on. And it was probably about a 2 or 3 year stretch where every January I was ready to do something else. But like Heyl said, you kind of draw on what you went through. And to this day, I still do that. I've got to make pretty tough calls to people that are, stressed out and upset and angry, and I can't do anything to change that, but I could just deliver the news and and be there for them. So kind of stuff that I actually, most of what I learned in interviews after the game, having to do those media things, unfortunately.
No, you're right for sure. Chris, I didn't ask you this, but you actually did come in with Adam. Do you remember kind of your first experiences, your first memories of meeting him and what that was like?
My first memory is like everybody said, the dude was massive, right? For a punter. It's like he was a normal size for a tight end, but when you said he was a punter, it's like, oh, this dude's huge, right? It's like it's just no disrespect, kickers, but that's just kind of how, you know, I kind of group all you guys into like one size. But Adam, man, we all came in together. We were the first division, Edsel's first Division I class, and I remember,
it's amazing how they found him too,
dude. To this day, I still don't know. I know he played rugby and stuff like that.
He was kicking in a parking lot, right? Heyl probably knows this story. Wasn't he kicking in a parking lot in Florida? And he was supposed to go to TCU or some other coaches, and he somehow got into UConn. But did you guys play in the game? His first NCAA game was against Eastern Michigan. Yeah. And there's a picture of him on Sports Illustrated with holding a koala bear. And I wasn't at the game, obviously, but I'm pretty sure, I don't know how if you remember this, but his first punt ever was like a 10-yard shank.
So I redshirted my freshman year. So I was home. I was in New Britain watching this game. And I'm pumping this dude up because he's 22 years old. You know, like he's or 24. He was 24 years old. Yeah, he was 24. He was 4 years older than us because he came in at 24 and O'Neal Wilson came in at 22. We all came in the same year. So I'm like, these dudes are grown men. Like, and I'm not understanding the age difference until I start having conversations with him. And I'm like, well, this dude's an adult, you know, like it was just so weird. But I remember watching the Eastern Michigan game, man, from home. I remember where I was at, and I'm like pumping this dude up. I'm like, yeah, man, this is a 24-year-old kicker. This dude's jacked. And then he shanked it. And I remember right when he did, he put his hands in his helmet. I'll never forget that. But no, man, Adam is one of those people. There's a number of people I know like this. Adam is one of those people where if you had a problem with Adam, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
You know,
100%.
Like that's the type of guy he was. There's other guys we played, like Tabor Small is another one like that. Like they're just good, wholesome people, you know, like, and it's like it is one of those people that you gravitate towards him. One, his accent, right? Like his accent is like infectious, and you feel like you're being seduced every time he talks. Which is why he did well in other areas.
And a lot worse. a lot worse.
Conversation for another day. But no, man, Adam was, again, it's just hard not to like that guy. And then even after the bad games, like you couldn't tell. Like maybe in the moment he was pissed, but dude, it like rolled off him, man. Like he was a good dude, real good dude. Like I was. One thing I'll mention, Lars, you have brought it up, having a buddy from the Army that you haven't spoken to in 20 years. One thing that I've realized, probably in the last 5 to 6 years, and not that I've never known this, but it's like more apparent now, is we don't have as much time as we think. You know, like we don't have as much time as we think, man. And look at us now, right? We're talking about memories. So what I tell people all the time is like, when it's all said and done, that's all we're going to have. The question is, how recent are they going to be? You know, are we going to be talking about something from 20 years ago, or are we going to be talking about something from 2 months ago? You know, like that's the only thing that I like to convey to people when I talk about stuff like this is we don't have as much time as we think, man. And I know we would all like to believe we're going to live forever, but things happen and you never know. So just appreciate those who are around you. Check on your strong friends. Like I've mentioned that a couple of times now. It's like, you never know what someone's going through, you know, and with June being Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, never a better time to reach out to some of the people you care about.
Geoff Larson, I wanted to ask you, because being a principal, you know, you're around kids constantly. How do you pick up signs if someone may be struggling, if someone may be going through something at home, or someone is going through something in sports and someone is having issues and trying to intervene and trying to provide them resources or help? what is your process, and how do you kind of pick up on that and notice if you see one of your students struggling?
Yeah, great question, Steve. To me, what it comes down to is having authentic relationships. Too much time, we get caught, especially in education, of keeping score on kids. Like, oh, he didn't show up the last week. There's no way he can pass this, or whatever, like little things like that. So for me, what we preach is just is making sure we're here for the right reasons. We're here for kids. We want to see them be successful. So for me, one thing that I do is I make sure. So I got my school has 1,800 kids, but I greet every kid at the door, and we give them a fist pound as we dap it up as they come through the door. But like what kids don't understand, and like we'll play music, whatever, just to set the mood, get them excited about coming to school. But that little dap,
that means so much.
From day to day, I can tell when a kid who daps me up every day, cracks a joke with me, whatever, and then one day he just walks by me or he has his head down, and it was like little check-ins. So just having those authentic relationships, for me, as a principal is important, but more so like to the real heroes is those teachers in the classrooms, because they see it on a daily basis. But being authentic, being real, being approachable, and just letting them know that you care and that you're there. What taught us a lot was COVID, right? Just having like support lines and stuff like that, like letting kids be able to reach out and connect and know that you're real, right? Like hey, you may not like what I'm going to say all the time, but I'm going to show up for you.
I absolutely understand that, and not enough people do it. And like you said, time goes by so fast. Matt, this the same thing with you, with your company and how well you're doing. Have you noticed, employees or people that you're working with, or even people that you're selling to, their personal struggles? And has that been something that has resonated with you, seeing that?
Absolutely. So on both fronts, most recently, a colleague of mine unfortunately committed suicide. He was 30 years old, really on top of his game. He was one of the top brokers, agents in the area. He had struggled with, substance abuse for years and had it under control for, the past few years. But, the stress of what we do and the rejection and, you take on the stress of your clients if you're doing it right, because you care. And so you have to have a break from that. And unfortunately, I see a lot of colleagues that really, develop issues and challenges and, because of the stress of the job, and it's 100% commission career for people. So,
it's expectations too, right?
Yeah, it's tough, but unfortunately, Casey was just a young guy, kid, incredibly successful, so well liked, like Adam. You would say the same thing, Chris, if you knew him. There wasn't a person that he met that didn't have a kind word to say about him. He was just always there for people, and really, caught everybody by surprise when this happened about a month ago. So yeah, it's prevalent. And when I talk to people, and I meet people when they're going through divorces, when they're going through financial struggle, and it's not a sales job to me. I'm there to connect with them. I'm there to see if I could help their situation, help them get better, help them do better. And sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with me. Maybe they don't need me. Maybe they should stay. I just told someone the other day, you guys should just stay in this house. You're better off here. Because when people call me, very few people are just, hey, let's just, casually want to buy and sell, because it's a tough market in Connecticut right now. So it's usually a high stress situation. And, you just have to really understand and consider what people might be going through before you, respond to them or advise them.
And Chris, I've watched several of your talks as well. What is the main thing, when you're speaking to a group? Because you guys go around the country and you do speaking and talk about these issues themselves. What is the biggest message you try to convey to whoever you're talking to about mental health and about asking for help?
Before I answer that question, great question, Cully, I want to go back to Larson real quick. So Larson, considering you have these level 3 and level 4 relationships with your students, we can count on your next 4-star at UConn.
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
okay,
100%.
So want to make sure we got that out the way. In terms of messaging, man, what we always say is, and my co-host Chief, I don't think he made it up, but he always says it. If you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to take time for your illness. And I think that's just so prevalent, because here's the deal, man. I promise you, the ones you're worried about probably aren't the ones, right, that need you the most right now. It's weird like that, right? You don't know. It shows up. It shows up different in everybody. You know, that's why it's just so good to be proactive. It's so good to talk about mental health and wellness, because we've all on this call have gone through something, right? Like Nuzie referenced his depression. I never knew that, right? And what you find is when you start having conversations about this, there's so many relatable topics, right? We've all suffered depression in some way, form, or another. I mean, shit, I didn't know about depression until later in life, to then go back and realize that, yeah, there was a point in time in college where I was depressed, but I didn't know, no one would have been able to tell me I was, because I didn't have the verbiage to articulate myself, nor was it ever explained to me to a point where I could understand that mental health challenges doesn't mean you're crazy, right? Because growing up, that's what I thought it meant. Like, I thought if you're suffering from mental health challenges, that means you're crazy, in air quotes, right? It takes many different forms, and yes, have I dealt with it? Yes, yes, I'm on so many fronts, man. My best friend, true story, a couple years ago, lost 17 family members in 1 year. 17, and it was crazy. Every time we looked up, he was going to a funeral, and I love him to death, but he's another one. He doesn't necessarily talk about that, the weight of that, and I think that's another thing. It's like, I always say, check on your strong friends, because you just never know how far one simple conversation can go. We have a hotline for our podcast, and we tell people, like, we're not therapists, but if you just want somebody to talk to, we're here to talk. And dude, we get so many calls and emails, and because you just don't know, like, you don't know what anybody's going through. If we did, it'd be easy, right? Oh yeah, Larson's struggling. Let's make sure we pep him up. You really don't know, because it could be the person that's the happiest in the room who's suffering in silence. So the only thing I can say to that is just bring awareness. Vulnerability creates community. So as I said, when you start talking about some of your challenges, people may be more inclined to open up about theirs, and then you can work through that together. But just be as proactive as you can with checking on folks.
I think, Chris, just to one of the points you made, I just really resonated with me. It's if you know that somebody's going through something, they probably have reached out to people because it's public. It's right. If they're wearing it on their sleeve, they know, they're aware of it. Other people are aware of it. It's the ones that, they sneak up on you, right? It's, that they appear to be on top of the world and just, full of energy and full of positivity. And they could be hurting the most.
And those are the ones we make up stories for, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Nuzie's the #1 agent in Connecticut. He's good, right? Yeah. He's all right. Like, Larson was an assistant principal. Now he's a principal. Oh, that guy's doing great. Like, we make up stories. We make up these things, and we don't know how true or false that is, right? Until we start having a conversation.
No, you're absolutely right. And I'll say myself, I definitely struggled with substance abuse and my own identity when I had left coaching. I got really heavy into drugs. And it was the same thing. I'm fine. I don't have a problem. I'm fine. And you're in that bubble and you think you're okay, and you're really not. And it's very, very difficult to ask for help. And thankfully, some friends noticed and said we could do this the easy way or the hard way. you can go to rehab or not. But rehab, I ended up going. I stayed, and it turned things around. And I was very lucky because it could have gone the other way. It definitely could have. So I do appreciate you sharing that. But yeah, I've been there myself, and it's tough. And going through therapy is tough. It's tough to sit there and answer questions and talk about your struggles. Jeffrey, your protocol, if you notice one of your students is having a problem or struggling, do you send them right to the guidance counselor? Do you talk to their parents? How far does it go?
So in our school, we have a crisis team. So,
Yeah.
but it depends on the level, and so it also depends on your team, right? Like, so you have I have 4 assistant principals, I have social worker, psychologists, and, behavior specialists. Like, we got all these people around, and like we try to have great relationships, right? And so first is that first initial contact and relationship, and then you kind of feel it out and where it needs to go. Do you have to contact parents? Down here in Florida, it's a little bit I don't want to say it's more serious than other places. We have something like Baker Act. You guys ever heard of Baker Act, right? Like, so if a kid gets Baker acted, they have to go, and I don't want to speak incorrectly to it, but they have to go to a hospital, and they have to stay there. I think it's at least 48 hours until they get evaluated and see something. So when you start going down that, and there's different screenings that we do to get people to help. But yeah, we have systems in place for it, but it starts with that initial check-in.
Yeah. And I think that's so important, that initial check-in. And it's hard for people to take that first step. Jeffrey Heyl, Adam was just such a happy guy, and he had a family, he had a great life. Do you think taking that first step is difficult just for everyone?
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing, like we talked about. Adam was a larger life personality, just a great human being, very successful academic, was an All-American his freshman year, had some big time punts in college. So, he was just somebody that I think a lot of people look up to, like Matt said. So when you heard the news of Adam passing, it took everyone by shock, because like you said, you thought, he's good. And I think that's what's so important about staying connected and doing things like this, but keeping in touch with teammates and people that are very important to you, and not let time pass without having those check-ins. So that to me was an eye-opener when I heard that news.
Yeah, it was an eye opener. It was an eye opener for sure. And Matt, you said it yourself. You said you didn't believe it. Like it was so hard to believe, because you never saw it coming. And there's a lot of people, you never see it coming. But with you, he really took on a big brother role for you, and he looked out for you all the time. And would you say he was probably one of your biggest supporters throughout your career?
Absolutely. Him and Larson, actually. Larson doesn't remember. Larson was one of the kindest people on the team to the kick squad. Because I sucked, and Larson would come put his arm around me like, "It's all right, you got it. Don't worry about it."
Larson, weren't you a kicker at one point or something?
He was a quarterback.
You were a holder. Okay.
But Bellamy, he was like the one size fit. He was the size of the kicker, so you just kind of put it. Yeah.
I identify with them the most. That's it.
No, but Steve, he was incredible. Actually, if you could see there.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. So after every holiday, he obviously didn't fly home to Australia. He would come back with my family, Thanksgiving, Christmas.
Oh my God.
And so after his senior game, he actually gave that jersey to my dad. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
No, he really appreciated that you guys were there for him, and you were his family.
And I've spoken to people after, and some of the things that they've shared is that his best days were really at UConn. We're in Connecticut. We're with all of us, and he just felt that's what he was there. He was there for that. He was all in. And when he went back to Australia, just kind of start like all of us, trying to figure out what path we wanted to take. But when about 2 years ago, the problem, obviously, one of the challenges is he passed right before COVID, and we were going to do a big memorial at one of the games, and a big tailgate and everything, and then the COVID year, so we couldn't do it. But 2 years ago, his family flew in from Australia, and we spoke to Cappy. We got access to the field. He probably had about 30 people from Australia there. My family was there, a few other people. Mark was there, and we poured some of it, spread his ashes, had a couple SoCo shots, and just told stories. And most of the stories were that he was the happiest in stores, and that's why they wanted to fly back here to spread his ashes. They went on campus, probably went to 204 South C. They went to where Memorial Stadium was, and then we went to Rensselaer Field and all that. So it's good that we have those memories.
Yeah, for sure. And Chris, again, you talked about it. Mental health therapy, seeking a counselor. People are always hesitant and afraid to take that first step. And it's good that you have a hotline that people will call and you'll talk to them, because from my experience, so many people talk, but not everyone listens. Everyone likes to talk, but nobody really listens. And the one thing I've noticed about you is you have become just a great listener, and hearing people and hearing their problems, and wanting to make a difference, and wanting to help. When did you kind of adopt that style where, because I remember we talked about on the podcast that you want to give back because so many people had been there to help you, and you have done so much to try to give back. When did that kind of start for you?
When I realized I couldn't financially pay back everybody who's helped me, I thought this was the next best thing. And, for me, it's all about access, dude. Like, that's what it is for me. It's all about access. Right. And growing up, there was access I had and access I didn't have. And I feel like it's my responsibility when I gain access to something, right? It's my responsibility to pay that forward and help others understand that, oh no, you too can have access to this. This isn't a gated community. This is just information that I now have due to my experience or where I am in life or whatever the case. But you can have this too. It may have taken me to kick open the door to get the access to now be able to give it back. But I just feel like, man, to your point, Cully, there's no shortage of people who want to hear themselves talk. There's no shortage of that. However, what I found is when you take time to listen to people and not bucket people, like just genuinely listen to people, one, you'll find so much commonality. Two, you'll find little nuggets that you can learn from them, no matter who them are, right? No matter where they are in life, there's something that you can take and learn from them. And three, that there's things that you can help them with. So for me, it's just about access, man. I saw that's just how I've always been. Anytime I see a need somewhere and I can help or impact it, I'm going to do it. It's not costing me anything to do it, to just be nice and provide information. Now, not everybody's going to take the information, but that's not my responsibility, right? My responsibility is to provide it and let them do what they will. And obviously I can share as much of my experience as you're willing to hear, but here's the access point. You can do what you will with the information, but you're not going to not do it because you weren't aware. If you don't do it, it's because you choose not to do it, not because I didn't provide it for you. You know what I mean? So that's, and growing up, not having much, and then, being in the blessed position that I'm in now, it's like, yeah, man, why not give back?
Right. And, control what you can control, which is especially what you said. And you're definitely doing that. The guys that have kids like Geoff, Larson, I'll start with you, with your kids. If they were having issues, do you check in with them daily? Do you they play sports? I mean, they're younger. How would you handle a situation if they came to you? And then the other thing I wanted to ask you is bullying, the prevalence of bullying, especially in schools, and the difference that that's making, because some kids just can't get away from it, and it's doing so much damage. And how do you handle bullying situations?
Yeah. For as far as the kids question, I'm get off this call. I'm probably going to call Bell and let him give me his notes, because he's had his oldest daughter's already gone through it, and like it's like my worst nightmare, right? Is like being able to help and support my own kids. But I think it goes back to that relationship piece, right? Like, is having those great relationships and being able to be open with your kids and be able to talk. And having resources, right? Like, if I don't have the answer, or my wife doesn't have the answer, all the different resources that I have around, and just getting my kids the help I can, whatever I can do. As far as bullying is concerned, it's really a buzzword in school, and like kids will latch onto it, and it's really getting to the root cause of it, of like, is it truly bullying, right? Is this kid a repeated coming after you and making you feel that way? But there's also two things there, right? Is one, for a kid to use the word, there's something happening there, right? There's something. So like, you have to address that need, and there's protocols that we follow for bullying, and how we go down, like certain investigations, what we do, right? But like the important thing to me is just that the kids are heard, right? That's the step one, is that like something is telling you, something is making you say that word. Okay, let's get to that. Let's get to the root of that. And at the end of it, I'd say a lot of the times, is it like true sense of bullying? Most likely not. But like by having those honest conversations and getting to the root cause, you can determine what it is. And if it is that, then you go down different steps, right? Like in school, it's about, changing classes, making sure like during transition, they're not seeing each other, cafeteria, those kind of things. And always communicating with parents and your faculty, so that everybody's aware.
So you really go out of your way. You have an open door policy with parents, with kids, with everyone. They can come to you with anything. And
Absolutely.
You're there every day, every morning to see your kids. And you probably know all their names, and you probably know their friends, their groups, and everything about them, which I think makes a huge difference.
That's the key, man. That's the key.
I got inducted to my high school Hall of Fame.
I saw that. Yeah.
And
Congrats.
and when I was
That's
preparing
awesome. Congratulations.
my speech, it kind of hit me, because I looking back, I thanked my parents, and got emotional during that portion of it. And I'm thinking to myself, hopefully if my kids someday, that they have the opportunity to get inducted into a Hall of Fame, what I want them to say about me. So that kind of hit me when you kind of look, into the future. So again, just trying to be there so they feel comfortable to approach you with anything that they have going on in life.
All right. That's amazing to look ahead and kind of have that perspective, because a lot of people don't. That's real perspective there. Matt, same with you. I mean, you have a family, you have kids as well.
I'm just getting started here, so I got to call Larson, Heyl. I got to call you guys after for some advice. Our oldest is in first grade, and so we really haven't been exposed to much yet. However, there are incidents that happen on the playground. That seems to be where it all happens, and you can kind of tell when she comes off the bus, and something might have happened, but she's so young, she doesn't necessarily know how to express it, but it comes out in other ways. Like she might just have a meltdown, or she might go in her room and just be real quiet. So trying to be real sensitive to that kind of thing, and just make sure that she knows that she can talk to us and all our kids as they grow up. But I'm learning. I gotta read some books.
Listen, Cully, I gotta say, like, for both Boo and Nuzie, like the mental toughness that they have already, and if they can instill that in their kids, being a kicker and having to make those kicks under that kind of pressure.
The pressure, yeah.
I'm just saying, their kids are all set, man. I'm telling you.
There's no one I would argue in UConn football history who was more loved and hated than Matt Nuzie. Like, anytime I go into an arena and his name is announced, it is such a mix of emotions, dude. It is the craziest thing you ever want to see.
There's some guys, I know where they sit. They sit by the kicking net. They thought for a good 12 years after I graduated that I was still there.
They're just preconditioned to boo you, man.
I just want to know if Boo or News, like, in the military, with like hearing loss and stuff like that, they call it tinnitus, right? Where you have like a ringing in your ear, constant ringing. Like, you remember like when like Edsel would like at the end of practice would circle everybody around and he would just stand in your ear and just blow the whistle as loud as he could as you're trying to kick. Like,
You're trying to kick.
You want to talk about like some PTSD? That's what we're talking about right there from that drill alone.
All these compliments they mean so much. They're coming from someone who served our country. So thank you. But I think Geoff could definitely share some stories, as can I. But yeah, it's I draw on that stuff. I mean, we've said it a couple of times here, but if I've got to, go into talk to a client that I'm just not, things aren't going well, I go back to those days. I mean, I was down and out after a couple of practices and games, and I'll never forget. And I came off the field crying many times. And that was I remember sitting in class after Boston College, my sophomore year, and the Daily Campus, right? And my face was on the cover of the Daily Campus, and like I was like this, and it was like Nuzie misses 5 field goals and loses the game or something. And no one knows what I look like because I got a helmet on the whole game. I never take it off, and I'm sitting in this math class, and I'm just slouched in my chair, and everyone's talking about me. It was I draw on those when I'm going through, tough times. I don't know. I guess there's some benefit there.
Christopher, we'll end things. I just want to hear, again, some kind words about Adam, some of your favorite memories about Adam, if you have a story or anything you'd like to say.
My favorite was when my favorite appropriate story is when
I love the preface.
He would be the crocodile hunter, like when he would do the impressions in the office, in the locker room. Those are some of my favorite, man. And again, he was just such a carefree dude, man. Just such a carefree dude. So he will be missed, man. Missed greatly.
Geoff Larson, kind words, memories from you.
Yeah, I'm going to echo the same thing that Bell just said. And, having, been on active duty before I went to play football, I always thought I was the oldest one in the locker room. And then I saw Adam and like, I was like, damn, this dude's 28. I'm like, what the? But just his infectious smile and like what Bell said earlier, like, there's something wrong with you if you didn't get along with that guy. There was something wrong. Like if you didn't chuckle or laugh, because that's what he did. He just made you feel comfortable, and he's just a great person to be around.
Geoff Heyl.
Yeah, I just feel blessed to have known him and spend as much time as I did. I had always hoped one day to take my family to Australia to meet him, and I'm sad that I don't have the chance to do that. But yeah, just blessed to know him, blessed to be a roommate with him. Just a lot of memories, especially road games. They always paired the starting kicker with a punter, and so I had the chance to room with him on the road at times, and so that just a lot of great memories. And yeah, just his voice and hearing the accent and just his bubbly personality. He was just so fun to be around.
And Nuzie, I mean, especially you being his family, away from his family and spending as much time with him as you did. I mean, the memories and the stories you probably have as well. Just anything else you want to say before we sign off?
I'll give you one thing, and many of you might know this, but his signature photo was him looking out with his hand like this, no clothes on. Okay. And he's taking these pictures all over the world. He has a collection of them. And so while you guys were in your meetings and doing all your cool stuff and getting ready for the game, he would go in the tunnel, couple times. He go, Matt, he'd like back then I don't even know what kind of camera it was. Maybe it was one of those like throwaway ones. You got to take this picture. He'd walk out there, do it, and so that was one of the funnier things. And when I picked him up for a wedding here, last time I saw him was probably, I don't know, maybe 9 years ago. He did the same thing. He took a signature pose down in Florida and just, missed the memories, the fun times. He used to call me at 3, 4 in the morning, heckle me up until, a month before he passed. So this is Steve, this was awesome. This was really, really something special. Thank you.
No, thank you guys. You guys all did a great job.
Hey, can I say something, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've listened to your podcast, and what I really appreciate about all this, absolutely, Matt. Like everything about this is awesome. But I really appreciate you sharing your story, Steve. Like you do a good job of
Absolutely.
Connecting and trying to get us to talk about them. But you came out of your shell today to talk about you, and like that's not easy to do. And I know the UConn Nation, like when you get off this call, you're gonna get about. Like I'll get 5 contacts. You'll get about 30 people reaching out to you because you have that kind of connection with everybody. I appreciate you, man. This is awesome.
Hey, and Cully, I'll take it a step further, man. That this platform, I could see being the catalyst for a all UConn reunion. Right? I don't know what that looks like, but I can see you, us, we, however it works out, making it happen, man. Because this is awesome, dude. I know we had a call about a month or two ago at this point, and you were still trying to find the direction here. And dude, you found it, man. Like you found it. You talk about identity. You're allowing people to come speak their truth on who they are, where they are in life, right? And what this place did for all of us, right? We've all had some downtimes, but there were definitely more up than down, right? And more than that is the life lessons learned. Like we've all had our moments with Edsel, but we can all take away some nuggets to help us currently in life, I'm sure.
When you take the show on the road, just remember us. We want to be your first podcast crew live at Rensselaer Field or live at Huskies, wherever you go.
Let's do it live at Huskies.
No,
we'll get Buzz on the show. Yeah.
No, we definitely will. And it's been great because I have been able to reconnect with so many people that, man, we haven't thought of in so long, and it's brought us back together. And that's what I never anticipated. So I am happy that it paid off. I'm happy that we've done Adam some justice, and I think this is going to be really good. I appreciate everyone contributing and sharing your feelings and your stories.